Wander enters the Forbidden Land with the corpse of a girl and makes a pact with a mysterious being to bring her back from the dead in exchange for destroying the Colossi that wander the land. Shadow of the Colossus is a third-person puzzle platformer cleverly disguised as an action-adventure game. You'll be tasked with the Colossus to hunt down and defeat. You'll have to find it by traversing the world on your horse and using your sword to guide you to an arena where the Colossi resides. The sword is accurate in that it draws a straight line from you to the Colossus, but often you'll have to take a winding and branching path which can lead to you getting lost. Your sword only works in direct sunlight, so when you're in a forested area or in shade, you simply won't be able to use it. Checking your map will help you get on the right path if you ever do get lost. Once you reach a Colossus, you'll have to figure out how to get on top of it. Mounting a Colossus usually requires use of the environment and exploiting a Colossi's nature. You can whistle or use arrows from your bow to draw their attention, or goad them into attacking something in the environment to give you an advantage or a chance to mount them. The only way to damage a Colossi is to find their weak points and stab them with your sword. You can use your sword to figure out where the weak points are, but they're usually in a fairly intuitive place. Once you've mounted a Colossus and are working toward the weak point, it will shake violently to try to get you off. This is one of the most annoying parts of the game. Once you're on the Colossus, you've effectively won, and the shaking is just a way to slow you down. It's especially frustrating when you're on the cusp of victory and the Colossi just won't stop shaking to give you a chance to finish it off. The Colossi have good diversity and the fights do feel unique. You'll have several that are absolutely massive and some that are much smaller. There's a few that are aquatic and there are a few more that fly. It will definitely subvert your expectations if you go in expecting giants like the first Colossus you encounter. Shadow of the Colossus is a game built around the spectacle. The new HD graphics look excellent, the environments especially are just beautiful. The Colossi themselves mostly look better, but also can be a bit awkward. Sometimes the fur and things like the eyes just don't translate well to the new aesthetic and it looks weird. The remastered audio is also great. As with the original game, a few tracks get replayed a lot, and the Colossi's individual themes are often overshadowed by the same tracks over and over. The graphics and sound are top-notch, and it's going to be the major selling point of the remake, especially if you were already a fan of Shadow of the Colossus. With a remake, you have opportunities to revisit concepts, cut content, and make general changes to things that may not have been perfect in the original. The elephant in the room is that Shadow of the Colossus is effectively a one-to-one remake, for better or for worse. It's the same game with remastered audio and visuals. This will be enough for existing fans, but there's a lot for players new to the game to understand. Shadow of the Colossus' original control scheme was awkward, and it hasn't changed at all. It's rough and doesn't feel natural or intuitive. Wander controls mostly how you'd expect, with pretty standard 3D movement using the control stick. There are some minor gripes, like how Wander won't automatically climb up a ledge. You'll have to manually press X to pull him up when you reach the top. While you're actually climbing a Colossus, things can only be described as wonky. You'll jump and try to grab, but catch something that you weren't aiming for. You'll try to climb, but go in a direction you weren't trying to. It can make some of the fights really frustrating, especially against the later Colossi. Aggro, your horse, doesn't control as you'd expect either. You don't control Aggro in the traditional sense. The best way to describe it is, you control Wander as he rides Aggro. You'll give Aggro a kick with triangle and he'll start to move forward. Aggro behaves like a real horse would, for better or for worse, and will not always be responsive or accurately follow your commands. Aggro will get hung up on terrain or refuse to move forward. This is only a minor annoyance while you're actually traveling, but Aggro is a fundamental part of several battles with Colossi. Having his controls be less responsive than Wander's can lead to multiple frustrations, especially when you combine it with the camera. The camera work remains awkward as well. It's a cinematic camera for sure. It can be difficult to control with its slow panning and awkward centering in an attempt to push Wander to the side while it tries to give you a beautiful still for a screenshot rather than being a functional camera for gameplay. Shadow of the Colossus' story is minimal. Wander travels to the Forbidden Land to persuade a godlike figure to resurrect a nameless woman. The minimalism does work, but it would be nice for some background information even if it was hidden. All you'll get for direct story is about 3 cutscenes, one at the beginning, one in the middle, and one at the very end, with nothing in between. You have a health meter in Shadow of the Colossus, but you may never even notice it. The Colossi have attacks, but being hit by them is usually a rarity. If you ever do take damage, your HP will regenerate as you stand still, and there are usually opportunities to do this in every encounter, making death a rarity if you ever even experience it at all. The difficulty of Shadow of the Colossus is based on your ability to figure out the puzzles that the Colossus represents and then executing the solution. Most are easy to figure out with some obvious map topography that's clearly part of the solution, or glaring, glowing weaknesses for you to exploit with your bow. Others are not immediately obvious and may take a few minutes to figure out. Once you do figure out the solution, the battle is basically over. You just have to execute, which is usually filled with frustrations from awkward controls and behaviors of Colossi. In several battles, once you're on top, you're put on a timer, and the Colossi will reset if you take too long to kill them. This forces you to mount it again, which can be an aggravating process as it's simply repeating the exact same thing you've already done again, and possibly a third or fourth time if you're really slow. A few of the Colossi require extremely precise inputs to be successful. The final two Colossi are the most frustrating in the game because of how they're designed and the precise nature of progressing in their fights. There are multiple difficulty modes available right from the start, which mostly just tweak some numbers for damage dealt and damage taken. Normal will be acceptable for most players to get through. Shadow of the Colossus' playtime is split between traveling on aggro and actually fighting the Colossi. It's about a 40-60 split, where about 40% of the time is spent simply traveling and trying to find the next Colossus, and 60% of the time actually fighting it. The first few Colossi will be able to be beaten in about 10 to 20 minutes, all in, including travel time, figuring out the solution, and executing that solution. The further you get, the longer each Colossi takes not only to fight, but also to get to. There is a lot of empty space in the Forbidden Land with nothing of real value to hunt down or find. You can find fruits to increase your maximum health and white-tailed lizards to increase your maximum stamina, but your health and stamina will be bolstered as you defeat Colossi, and these are simply minor bonuses. The remake has added hidden coins to collect, but the game is built around your core loadout, and the reward for hunting them down won't be worth the time spent running around the vast expanses of nothing. After beating all the Colossi, you'll unlock Time Attack mode in New Game Plus. Time Attack will allow you to unlock additional tools for fighting the Colossi by beating them under certain time thresholds. New Game Plus will allow you to carry over your maximum health and stamina from previous playthroughs to give you an edge when you do replay. Your mileage with these features will vary. If you enjoyed Shadow of the Colossus, these are some nice bonuses, but they are bonuses, and all the Colossi are designed without them in mind. At recommended playing, games are either ascended to the pantheon of games worthy of your time with recommendation, or are forced to wallow in the miserable muck of mediocrity with a dismissal. Shadow of the Colossus is a game that's clunky and can be frustrating, but has amazing atmosphere with an emphasis on minimalism. It's built around the spectacle of a man going against these giant colossi and overcoming. It's disappointing that the remake is simply an audio and graphical update, and did not add any meaningful content, adjust the Colossi battles, or fix some of the issues with the original game. If you've never played Shadow of the Colossus and are interested, or you're looking for an updated version, this is the version to get. The original release will still stand alone for PS2 owners. Shadow of the Colossus is a well-known game that's discussed frequently. It's usually Exhibit A in the video games are art argument. As such, it's important to give it a chance to establish your own opinions on it. Even if you end up not enjoying it, it's a unique game that's worth experiencing at least once. Shadow of the Colossus gets recommended playing's most prestigious verdict of recommended.